two like mainstream, I would say, narratives, and you see it in the media also. I've done a lot of work in the media personally, and just observing other footstep stories, footsteps organization, working with people who are leaving culture orthodoxy, and so on. And these are usually the two narratives that we get, either a very romanticized version or a very demonizing version. And my response to her was a lot more of, yeah, there's certain parts that I like, and there's certain parts that I don't like. However, when I take it down, I take it down and I think about Yiddish, and again, I'm only talking for myself, I'm not talking for the Thai community, I'm not even for everyone on this panel, obviously. If there's one thing that I would say I really would have wished that I didn't grow up with, it's the fact of growing up only speaking Yiddish. Because that's something that actually messed me up in a really hard way. There aren't a lot of things that I would change about my background. It's a question that if you ever speak to the public, people always get like, where would you want to grow up? Or I've had a lot, if you could have been raised in any Jewish denomination, where would you be? And by the end of the day, my answer is, I don't know if I would change anything, because I am who I am and I am where I am because of my entire life experience. However, when I look at the fact that we grew up without being able to speak the language of the land, without being able to speak English, it really messed me up in every way. There is a reason why by law, and you should ask yourself why it's not enforced, but at least by law, sending your kids to not teaching your kids English is considered child abuse in New York State. You can actually file a lawsuit against your parents for not giving you the ability to teach a language, because it is considered you're an invalid. You can't be a normal member of society if you don't speak the language. So, in an overall part, the fact that I grew up in such a community ended up affecting me in every way, and including obviously when it comes to the experience with gender. So, just to give a short background, in case anyone didn't clock it yet, I was a Stein male at birth. Although personally I've identified as a girl since I remember myself. I always say that I have an interesting relationship with the term transgender, because it applies that at some point in your life you were another gender, which isn't totally inaccurate, at least for me. I don't have a single conscious memory of being a boy and being okay with it. I didn't know that other trans people exist until I was 20 years old, because we lived in a community that was fighting against the internet, which I think is totally ironic that people live in New York City 21st century and like they invest thousands of dollars fighting against the internet, but they actually did that, and I had no access to that. And this the language barrier coming back again. Like it wasn't like I can just walk into the Brooklyn Public Library. There's one almost in the middle of Williamsburg. There's a really nice public library, but I couldn't walk in because I couldn't read any of the books there. So the language, which is amazing, and I love the Yiddish cultural parts that exist outside of the confines of the Hasidic community. There's some really beautiful parts to it. I love Yiddish theater, and to put it out there, I personally got involved with it, and I'm working now on a production that's hopefully going to be in the summer in Yiddish theater, which is amazing to me. I love it. But I would have really preferred to come to Yiddish in college. I'm at Columbia. We have the oldest and one of the biggest academic Yiddish programs. That would have been more than enough for me. Growing up with it really put me in a place that I couldn't relate to anyone. The big reason why I didn't transition when I started living in the community, I was introduced to the transgender community when I was 20, which was the first day that I browsed the internet. I learned about the transgender community, first in Israel, because again, I couldn't read English, but I could read Hebrew. Started making friends. I had a good example would be my first Facebook. I opened my first Facebook account in May of 2012, and by November of 2012, I had a Facebook account under a female name, and I was active on some Jewish LGBT groups. So it was something that I knew about it even at that point, and I already knew their support. And a big reason why I knew I can't transition is because here I have this whole educational barrier, cultural barrier, and language barrier that I could barely be a human being, put aside now going and having to shed a whole other part of my identity and deal with gender transition. So I think by the end of the day, and I'm probably running out of time, okay, at the end of the day, if I have to say one paragraph of the effect that Yiddish had on my experience of being trans, it's sadly almost entirely negative. However, at the same time, I don't want anyone to get an image that my entire experience with Yiddish was negative as a language and as a culture, specifically with Judaism, the fact that I'm sitting here in a synagogue, and the fact that I teach at Hebrew schools, and I've been involved with Jewish communities in every different form. I've worked with literally every Jewish denomination in the United States in the last few years. So when my relationship with Judaism is a lot more nuanced than that. And even with Yiddish currently, as I mentioned before. But at the end of the day, if there's one thing I could have changed in my childhood, it's that. Please, just speak English to your kids.